Hello and welcome back to our channel again. We're so excited to talk about one of the most anticipated games of all time, Call of Duty Warfare 2. This game was early released, and it's already making waves in the gaming world. In this video, we're going to dive into the gameplay and some of the key features that make this game a must-play. Let's talk about a few characters and their respective factions. So most recognized members of Task Force 141, which is a unique operative group formed of elite soldiers from various different countries, but all the favorites are British. His following demands here from Kate Laswell, who works for the CIA, especially General Shepard, who is part of the United States Army. Also involved is a group called Shadow Company, who are private military contractors who technically aren't just US military, they're not US soldiers. But they still have elite training, and the point that they're not authorized soldiers indicates that they can sometimes overstep and do things that the military wouldn't get away with. The major Shadow Company member you need to be aware of for this game is Philip Graves, also known as Phil Graves for short. So why is Ghost in Al-Mazrah? Well, he is trying to keep an eye on an Iranian general there. Ghost sees that it's really a military deal. Russians are supplying associates to Iran. And so Ghost radios in and gives the coordinates. Shepard provides the all-clear, and nearby Graves takes control of a mobile ballistic missile, which is accommodated inside a shipping container, and manually flies the missile directly into the center of the arms deal, killing everyone there. Apart from Ghost, this killing of Ghorbrani stokes a lot of the geopolitical pressures of this game's campaign. And so actually, though in the game you only spend about 5 minutes on it, it's worth paying attention to the fact that these Western forces have simply gone out of their way to kill a senior Iranian general, and that understandably is going to fuel a lot of splashing Western hatred that might have already been present in that region. A couple of months later, we find out that exactly this has occurred. Laswell meets up with a Shepard, and they debated the fact that Ghorbrani's second in command, a guy named Hassan Zyani, wants vengeance for the sadly Ghorbrani's death. Zyani is a Quds Force major, and the Quds Force is a branch of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which functionally here acts like a combination of the CIA and a special forces unit. He's not raised someone to be messed with, especially not in Iran, but Laswell's intel indicates that he's not truly in Iran right now. He's transited to Al-Mazrah. Intel indicates that there is an attention of AQ fighters, that's Al-Qatala, which is a terrorist corps from Kazakhstan. And those fighters seem to be covering 3 distinct buildings there, so Hassan may well be inside. Shepard gives the all-clear, and on the 28th of October 2022 at 1:30 AM Ghost both arrive on the scene. Their plan now is to fly half of their group into one side of the valley and half into another, and then kind of sweep through and meet in the middle. So Soap, Ghost, and a few Marines get out on one side, but as the chopper's flung to the other side of the valley, it gets shot down. 5 soldiers are massacred in action, once wounded, and 1 soldier, Corporal DeFields, is unhurt. So he hunkers down and tries to avoid getting shot while Soap and Ghost sweep the buildings. As they sweep, they see recordings of Hassan sermonizing his message, saying the West must pay for a century of cruel acts against us. Together we will vengeance on the death of General Ghorbrani. If the world courts do not punish these war criminals, we will take the case into our own hands. At the moment and place of our choosing, it's extremely much meant to be prepared for a situation where the US are the war criminals here, and the Iranians are just obtaining vengeance for something that was accomplished to them first. Having swept through the buildings but not found Hassan, the 141 members reach the crash site and defend it from oncoming AQ forces, including a bunch of military trucks that turn up. They then move ahead and sweep the final building, locating it to be an ops center inside, and also discovering Hassan's uniform, which confirms he was there earlier, but he is no longer here. Then Ghost turns to Soap here and says choices have consequences, and Soaps is a little taken aback, thinking that maybe Ghost thinks that they shouldn't have proceeded to rescue that one remaining soldier from the crash site, but it's not that deep, and they move past it and head over to a warehouse nearby that wasn't actually on their intel. They thought there are only 3 buildings, there are 4, and the fact that there are still AQ forces defending this position even though Hassan is gone made them think that there must be something there inside. They find a shipping container that sounds familiar, and inside that, you guessed it, there's a ballistic missile. The controls are all in English, and there's a US flag stamped on the side. They radio back home to let Laswell and Shepard know, and instantly Shepard wants to know how many missiles there are, and how they might be intended to be used. Now Laswell's thinking about how they can get to the bottom of this unknown mystery, and indicates that the team on the ground do as much spying as they can too, and I mention finding out everyone who's ever breathed on those missiles, but Shepard opposes that. He wants them destroyed ASAP, expressing that he thinks there'll be too much opponent reinforcement and support in the area for them to just stay around there, so he wants to missile toasted ASAP. Well, his passing that to order Laswell has a theory Iran uses Amsterdam as a smuggling hub and the US also has contacts there, and so possibly they can get boots on the ground and use that to look for clues as to what might have gone on here. Laswell wants to make sure that the job gets done right. So she runs back into the region herself, which is approved by shepherds who ask her to keep this tight, so that word doesn't get out the U.S has lost some missiles. So later that day on October 28, Laswell taps in with Captain Price and Garrick, or Gaz, who are also both associates of the Task Force 141 as well, made a deal. But the Price has an acceptable bit of history, and it made sense to contact them anyway as they were already looking into a current uptake in the territory of extremely messed kind of chatter, and they happen to be also tracking Hassan. So it works in both their favors. Price and currently Gaz will start their search in the harbor looking for a boat that might include a shipping container, in case there are more missiles, or they can see how it was moved originally. They take out about a dozen Al-Qatara security who are all surrounding a barge in that zone. But when they break into it and take out its occupants, they discovered that those guards were from the Las Almas, a Mexican narcotics cartel. Iran is using the cartel and working with them for transport, but they're not transporting missiles in this barge, it's transporting something else. On one of the dead guards' phones, they see a text saying that the cartel is going to be meeting with Al-Qatala at 8 p.m. in Amsterdam. So that's where they head next. Because of that, Price and Gaz split up. Price eavesdrops at a table nearby where the meeting is occurring, while Laswell and Gaz take out a team of guards in the area and provoke a distraction. Price overhears that the Iranians are even paying the cartel for the transport of the great Major Hassan Zyani, and especially they're about to smuggle him into the US from Mexico. After that, the group captures the cartel member that was going to be at the conference, and Laswell says that she'll interrogate him and she can be very convincing, so they can try and learn more about how Hassan is preparing to get into the U.S. And the Laswell contacts another new personality called Alejandro Vargas. Vargas is part of the Mexican Special Forces and is part of a specific unit called the Cowboys, which in Spanish is Los Vaqueros. Laswell lets Vargas know precisely what's occurring, and Vargas sets out with Sergeant Major Rodolfo Parra, who is essentially his right-hand man, to try and stop Hassan from running across the border. The cartel sends immigrants to cross at the exact time to distract local authorities, and unfortunately for Vargas, Hassan reaches the border before he can be stopped by Gaz and determines that even though he has no jurisdiction in the US, he's still gonna pursue Hassan. He just thinks it's a very risky and important guy, so he does so, and he gets Rodolfo with him. As they do this, they get stopped by local police officers, and while the police are speaking to them and kind of being assholes, to be honest, they get hit with an RPG which kills all the police officers. But Rodolfo and Vargas both survive the massacre, and they persist pushing towards the stash base where they presume the dangerous Hassan is hiding. They split up inside the house and Rodolfo sweeps the top base but gets knocked out by some of Hassan's men. Hassan gloats for a second when this occurs to tell him that he is not a terrorist, a bad guy, he's just a soldier, and he's here in the US to fight. He tells his men to set the building on fire and they leave Rodolfo to burn just like Gogo Brani did. In Rodolfo's passing moments in the burning house, he radios across to Vargas to tell him what intel he can see pinned to the wall inside the room. A ship is delivering something across the Atlantic, but he can't tell what. At the last moment, Vargas bursts into the room and drags the good Rodolfo out, and both of them survive unscathed. Afterward, Mexican Special Forces provide that Hassan is indeed moving something on ships toward the US, and it could reasonably be missiles. The Americans determined that they need to arrest Hassan to interrogate him, but he's fled back into the cartel's security in Mexico, even inside Las Almas. Because of this, they send Soap and Ghost in to meet up with Vargas and his vaqueros and invite them to capture Hassan together to avoid starting a war. They task Graves. Can you recognize Graves from Shadow Company? With assisting, seeing as he has different roles of engagement to the US Army. So, what would be sufficient for a foreign power to do, and what wouldn't be? The group encounters on the 30th of October 2022. Vargas explains how Las Almas is too much corrupt. If you resist that corruption, you disappear, because many of the police officers are in support of the cartel. They're paid off by them, and much of the army are as well. Soldiers are well trained, so himself hasn't turned, and neither have his vaqueros, because he grew up in Las Almas, and he loves it there, and as far as he's concerned he'll die fighting for it. That doesn't mean that it isn't dangerous though, and Vargas specifically says that he keeps his family a secret, and doesn't talk about them ever in order to protect them. Part of the reason for that is El Sin Nombre. The nameless leader of Las Almas is everywhere. Nobody knows who he is, but the cartel has such a grip on daily life that you just got to be extra vigilant. So intel indicates that Hassan has been held in a building at the back of the town, and the cartel has cleared all the houses there. I just use it as a hideout so open then Ghost sweeps through the village with the Vaqueros and Vargas. But in the building that they believe Hassan is inside all they find is a good force flag that's unmistakably Hassan's own flag, so their intel was good and they just got there too late. At that moment corrupt army troops drive in and engage the group so they flee down a hill to try and extract at the Soul River Bridge. When they get there Graves gives them some air support from above and tells them that he might have spotted Hassan north of their position. So they transfer and sweep through a new cartel in combination with Graves watching from above and covering with aerial firepower this time. They are victorious and they capture Hassan from the building and successfully extract him. More cartel associates try and stop them, but Graves combats them off and this permits them to take us on to a remote location and interrogate him, with Graves also creating the trip and being present at that interrogation. There's some back and forth in the conversation between Hassan, who declares that he's not a terrorist, the US is the terrorist, but it is all interrupted by Soap, who asks Hassan who he got the missiles from. And that interruption is interrupted again by Shepard, who says he doesn't overlook who got the missiles from, it he cares about where they're going now. That might seem a little suspicious for individuals that high up in the US Army not caring about who sold U.S. Army supplies to a foreign force. A little bit later in the video why he's kind of cutting things off, that now through the entire exchange Hassan knows that what the British guys and the Americans are doing here is illegal. They definitely can't take him hostage, that would be an act of war, and Mexico isn't at war with Iran either, so he certainly isn't a prisoner of war, so they don't have any grounds to keep him detained. Shepard at one point nearly gives the kill order because he's just getting annoyed and probably because he's feeling a little bit sketched out by all this, but Laswell reminds him that that would definitely be an act of war, and so they let him go before they do. So they hack his phone and find out he was speaking with someone in Spain, so that is their following point of focus. Gaz and Price gaily up and head off to Spain to examine the hatchery that Hassan was communicating with. Laswell also travels there and hangs around on a boat waiting to extract the team. They have no jurisdiction in Spain, so this special mission is totally off the books. As they push into the facility they find out that the guards are not cartel numerals this time, they are Russian. They're Russian crates that have all been newly unpacked, and there are Russians. They have been living there as well. As Laswell says, this is all getting a lot bigger. The plot is thickening. As they explore they find a map indicating that there is a hidden tunnel network underneath the lighthouse close the hatchery. So they find access to those tunnels behind the washing machine. Pushing through the tunnel network they find a more submarine that the cartel uses for smuggling, but they don't discover any missiles, and as they come across that submarine, AQ forces capture Laswell from her boat, taking her as a hostage of their own. Price is infuriated by this, and even more so infuriated when Alcatala sent a message to him showing Laswell, proving that she is still alive and she's crossing to Kazakhstan. At the start, the likelihood is that taking her to Al-Mazara. They're gonna smuggle her underground somewhere and she'll be disappeared for good. They'll never find a revival again. So Price apparently once they're getting there sending the cavalry and get her out ASAP, but Shepard suggests that he actually can't help here. It would take more planning and more preparation, and he isn't able to commit resources to that right now. But he also isn't going to stand in Price's way. So Price and Gaz guys comprehend what they have to do. They ship off to us on the 1st of November 2022. During traveling, their Gaz mentions that they might need a military for this one, like they're going up against the entire Alcatala force on pretty much home turf. But Price says don't stress yourself, I know someone. And he calls in a favor with his old good friend Farah, who is the leader of the Kazakhstan Liberation Force, and a truly prominent character in Modern Warfare 2019. Farah brings in her forces and together they hunted down the convoy that's transporting Laswell. As part of that, Garrick's chopper is hit with a missile and he survives on a rope. Then he commandeers a truck and is all pretty chaotic, but eventually, they push forward, corner the convoy, and they manage to get Laswell out. She is saved and Ferris forces head home. When they have a moment of privacy, Price apologizes to Laswell, but she just says knock it off. She's discovered that the missiles were never actually in Spain, it was just their guidance systems, which came from the Russians, and those systems are now on the missiles. So, now the only person different than Hassan who knows where the missiles are is El Sin Nombre, and so the team groups back up again, and they head to the house of one of Sin Nombre's lieutenants. Now that might seem a little bit weird, but you'll remember that the cartel was trying to stop the temporary kidnapping of Hassan earlier on. It was evidently pretty bad for their reputation when they were meant to be protecting Hassan in Mexico, and one for one the Shadow Company still managed to get to him. So they're annoyed about the entire situation, and the meeting that's occurring at this lieutenant's house is to try and figure out who it was that lit that fire under Las Almas that's causing all of this chaos. So the team needs to get into the house, but they don't have a way in just yet. However, they quickly decide on a plan. They're going to send Soap in to offer up data, and information to Lars Ulmars and kind of use him as bait, and then they work from the inside out to try and figure out who is Sin Nombre. To try and make Soap bait even more believable, Graves rips off his Shadow Company patch, and hands it to him as proof of his commitment to Shadow Company, and with that done, Soap enters the compound. While he's doing that, Vargas on the side sneaks into the compound, kills a guard, and then uses the god's outfit to disguise himself as a cartel member. This indicates that once Soap enters the building, Vargas is one of the cartel partners that's leading him around, and so Vargas drops Soap off with Diego, who's the lieutenant of the house, and he leads Soap to an interrogation room. In there is Valeria. She is one of Sin Nombre Sicarios, which is a hitman, and she's questioning some other folks that are already inside the room. When Valeria questions him, Soap reveals the truth. Los Vaqueros are operating with Shadow Company, this American group of PMCs, and they're looking for the missiles. He uses the patch from Graves to prove he's telling the reality, and Valeria decides that maybe she should head upstairs and talk to the Sin Nombre to see if Soap deserves an audience with him. While she does that, Soap is brought to the ground floor to wait for her word. This is when Vargas re-enters the picture. He slips so disguise, which lets him move around the system undetected, and they sneak upstairs with Soap killing Diego and grabbing his key card. The guys then take the elevator up to the penthouse where the famous Sin Nombre is, and they sneak a snake cam under the door to discover the real identity of Sin Nombre is just Valeria, the woman that was interrogating Soap downstairs moments ago. With her identity figured out, Vargas and Soap smash the door down and capture Valeria with the help of Graves, who passes in a chopper. She's taken to a holding site inside a shipping container for interrogation. Vargas is furious about Valeria being Sin Nombre. They have a history together. She used to be military, they served on different squads, but they were in an identical unit together, and Vargas' squads were the rambunctious Vaqueros, whereas hers were just clean and cut, until the raid on a son of a man called La Araña. Primarily, Valeria's team workers were told to cordon off the town to keep that Araña's forces out and stop bloodshed, but it turns out that she was La Araña's enforcer, and so she took Loud La Araña to the mountains and killed him, and then she took over in the fuel vacuum that was left behind. Vargas hears all this and is disgusted. He says that she's a disgrace to the military and to her brothers. But Valeria thinks terrorism is useful for business. As long as there's a war on terror, there'll be no real war on drugs. So she gets under Vargas's skin in a big way here, and she also knows that they need to keep her alive. In that case, she uses that power. Graves says he wants the missiles, he wants the target, and he wants Hassan. But she replies by saying she doesn't know the targets, as she's just a messenger, and she'll cheerfully tell him the missile location only, and then, after they've dealt with all that, then shall tell them where Hassan is. But they have to get the hell out of Las Ulmars afterward. The group looks at each other and agrees the deal is accomplished, and she shows them the coordinates of an oil rig 400 miles offshore in the Gulf of Mexico. It's no longer operational, and it's used by the cartel as a smuggling dead drop. So what's going happens next, we will see. Can Ghost find Hassan? What will be with Valeria? She will die, or... If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. And let me know what you think of Call of Duty in the comments below. See you next time.